or 1 o'clock Bangkok, 2 o'clock Beijing, 3 o'clock Tokyo. So I think if you don't mind, let's start now. So thank you very much. I think good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, our colleagues from different part of the world. Long time no see. So this is Wenxi from UNESCO IOC Westpac. So it's a great honor, I think, for me to moderate this session. Actually, we have 260 registered participants, including our panelists from 42 countries, which also includes several our representative UN agencies and intergovernmental organizations. So first and foremost, I sincerely wish you and your families and the relatives are doing well and will keep doing well in this very challenging moment. So we do look forward to meeting all of you physically in the very near future. I hope the regional session today would be of great help for you to understand and engage into the future development of UN decade. Okay, it's a great honor and pleasure, for all of us to have our Executive Secretary of IOC and the Assistant Director General of UNESCO to join us on the very early morning of Paris. So may I invite you to open this session? Vladimir, please.
Thank you very much, Wenxi. And indeed, mostly, I think, good afternoon to most of you. And indeed, I would like to reiterate what Wenxi said, wishing you good health and keep it this way and improve if possible. So indeed, it is a very important meeting today, and I would like to briefly share with you the line of thought. The decade, the main ambition of the decade is to take us from the ocean that we have to the ocean that we want. And there are some qualities of the ocean that were described in the implementation plan of the decade. Even we can easily see this are not only qualities of the ocean, but also how we would like to see our relation with the ocean. So, but we're not going to achieve these qualities trying to improve the quality of only water. We have to focus on 10 challenges. And it's very easy to recall how they all come about. We have to treat pollution. We have to move forward with ocean health, dealing with ecosystems. This will help us to feed people. This will help us to keep the economy thriving, that like you do in your very fast developing region. This will happen in the under the consequences and under the conditions of climate change, which will require focus on disasters. And it also means that we have to observe the ocean, develop data, a twin of the ocean ecosystem. We have to develop capacity, and this requires also change in our relation with the ocean. So this is the sequence of thought that we used now, and this was actually an all-inclusive process. So right now, the most important thing is that we now have to design not those kind of framework, but the real science in the decade. And that's exactly why we have the Ocean Decade Virtual Series, a very important document. So in that series, please focus on your region, which is incredibly important. This region has biodiversity, climate change, population, thriving economy, and the highest biodiversity in the world. But now the task is to start developing the content of the decade in terms of science program, big thinking. So, and our experience, and Alison can confirm that, is that people tend to focus on the little things. Sometimes, they really have, but now the time is to think really big and design or co-design. And that's exactly the purpose of this meeting. It's a co-design, solution-oriented research. We need to design that research. We are really happy to help you with this process, but you really need to find something which is big scale, that is important for your region and corresponds to challenges. Not only previously we looked at the societal outcomes of decade, but now please look at how we can implement those societal outcomes in the 10 challenges and in relation to your region. That would be the super task ahead of you. We are in front of very just in front of a very important moment in the history of oceanography when we are designing the content of science for sustainable development. So that's what we're going to do, and I would like to wish you all success that you need in going through this very challenging, very exciting period in the development of the decade of ocean science. Thank you very much, Venci, also for organizing this.
Thank you very much, Vladimir. I think indeed it was a great honor and also pleasure to have you to open this session and also give us many insightful guidance for the future development of your decade. So let's take a brief look about the agenda we will take today. So as starting today, the session will start with the overarching presentation made by my colleagues, Alison from IOC Westpac, about UN decade outcome, and also the first global session of co-designing the science. So after that presentation, and we will conduct the two plenary sessions, as you are aware, with the focus on the challenges and opportunity for collaborative research at the region level, and also capacity development, training, education, and resource need at regional level. So after this two plenary session, we will have arranged the QA session, for each panel discussion. So you are very much strongly encouraged to type your questions at any time you wish, in order to save time. So you don't necessarily wait to type your questions until we start the QA session. You can do that now. So we will, last agenda, we will discuss some next step and also what we can do for the region. So this is the agenda for today's discussion. We also invited, as you know, in order to carry out the co-designing approach, we also identify the representative from different ocean state communities. So I fully believe that their transdisciplinary background will be of great help for us to understand the challenges and also capacity development in this region. So before I invite the first panelists, first speakers, I would like to draw your attention to some housekeeping issues. So as I mentioned, due to the number of participants, so all participants are automatically muted. So but you are invited to type your questions at any time using the question box, I think, in your control panel. Third one, the session will be recorded, and the recording will be posted to the decade website shortly after this session. And later on, a summary and all PPT will be available at the decade website and also our Westpac website. So this is just something I would like to draw your attention before we start the presentation. So first, I would like to invite my colleagues, Alison, from IOC Westpac, who has been assisting the EPG of UN Decade in the development of the UN Decade Implementation Plan. So, Alison, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wengxi, and good afternoon to everybody. Hello from a very dark and cold Paris, but it's a real pleasure to be here with you today. Perhaps we can jump straight to the first slide. So I've got about 10 minutes to give you a very brief overview of the Ocean Decade, where things are up to, and try and put this current webinar in the context of the other activities that are happening. So we're entering the final months of the preparation phase of the Ocean Decade. This process has been going on for nearly 3 years now. As Vladimir mentioned, it's been a highly participatory process. It commenced with a global planning meeting in May 2019 and has been followed by a series of regional planning meetings over the last 2 years. And this process has ended in the preparation, or is ending in the preparation of the implementation plan for the decade. And the implementation plan is currently being considered by the United Nations General Assembly. And we hope to have the green light in the next month or so to go ahead with the finalization of this plan. Now, this plan is a dynamic and living document. It's non-prescriptive, and it will evolve and be updated over the life of the decade. And it really sets out the framework, as you can see in this slide, for how the decade will be implemented. There is a summary of this plan available in 6 languages, and we can put the the link to that in the chat box in case you haven't seen it, because I'd really recommend that you have a look at the summary of the plan to supplement the discussion or the presentation this morning. So this graphic here really tries to capture in one diagram the key elements of the implementation plan and the way the decade is going to be rolled out. So if you start from the bottom up, a range of decade actions will be identified, implemented, and resourced throughout the decade. So these are the programs and the projects and the activities and the different on-the-ground actions that diverse actors will take over the life of the decade. Now, they are not pre-identified in the implementation plan. As Vladimir said, the plan provides a framework, and now we need to design the science to fit that framework. So these decade actions will be organized around a series of decade objectives, and you can see that on the figure here. These decade objectives really represent the steps in the process to move from the ocean we have to the ocean we want. So these objectives relate to the identification of priority knowledge, the generation of priority knowledge, and then very importantly, the use of priority knowledge for sustainable development solutions. And the decade actions that partners will identify will also be organized around a series of 10 ocean decade challenges. And these are really the most immediate and pressing needs of the decade, and they will evolve over the life of the decade. And you'll be able to see these in the summary of the implementation plan, but they relate to a wide range of issues that are essential elements of ocean science if we are to achieve the vision of the decade, which is the science we need for the ocean we want. Now, together, this collective effort of decade actions will contribute to the decade outcomes and thus contribute to the 2030 agenda and regional and global policy frameworks. Now, all of this is only going to be successful if it's a collective effort and if there is collaborative research, if there is co-design of the actions and co-delivery of the actions. And hence why the session today focusing on co-design is so important. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Focusing now then on the Ocean Decade virtual series. As we enter this final stretch of the preparation phase for the UN decade, and as partners start to develop ideas and initiatives for decade actions in response to the calls for actions, such as the one that's being currently released, we've been looking at ways within the IOC team and the Executive Planning Group to continue to engage ocean actors and maintain necessary momentum in the lead up to the decade launch. And of course, this is particularly important given the current sanitary crisis where we can't meet and discuss as we normally do. So in this context, we're organising, along with a large number of partners, an Ocean Decade virtual series, which consists of a series of virtual dialogues that aim at mobilising the global ocean community, fostering innovative solution-orientated action, and developing sustainable and innovative partnerships between diverse stakeholder groups under the Ocean Decade. Now, these virtual series, the virtual sessions in this series, are organised around the decade challenges that I mentioned in the previous slide and a range of cross-cutting issues. And today's session forms an integral part of this series by focusing on co-designing the science we need for the ocean we want. If we can move to the next slide, please. So why is co-design such an important part of the Virtual Ocean Decade series? Well, as I showed you at the outset of the presentation, the decade through the implementation plan aims to provide a framework and the enabling conditions for interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary collaborative research to develop the science we need for the ocean we want. Now, this is a huge ambition, and discussions with partners throughout the preparation process have shown a very strong demand for discussion and practical guidance on how to achieve this, and specifically how to achieve ocean science that is relevant to existing and emerging societal needs, that is co-designed and co-delivered through innovative and sustainable partnerships, and that reaches across and actively seeks collaboration between different disciplines and communities of knowledge. So to respond to this need, one part of the Ocean Decade virtual series will focus on co-designed solution-orientated research. Now, these sessions are taking place at the global level, and that process started last month, and at the regional level. And they will discuss how best practices and lessons learned and can help to identify recommendations for co-design by exploring a range of questions such as how to recognize the complementarities across different knowledge systems and how to support interaction between disciplines, sectors, communities of knowledge, including Indigenous knowledge systems. They will address questions around promoting increased private sector participation in ocean research and innovation. And they will address questions relating to mainstreaming different methods of collaborative research into education and academic systems. Now, the first global session, as I said, was held last month, and it was a starting point for this conversation. And it's already highlighted some major challenges and opportunities relating to co-design throughout the Ocean Decade. Now, some of these included the diversity of collaborative research practices and methods that exist. So there is not one size that fits all. Different actors can choose different methods and tools that suit them best. They highlighted the importance of regional coordination and interregional exchange, and this is obviously an area where the Ocean Decade can play a role. They highlighted the need to ensure appropriate funding mechanisms to support the co-design process and the implementation of co-designed interdisciplinary projects. And that's something that's going to be another area where the Ocean Decade will be working with funders. And finally, they highlighted the need to build multi-stakeholder partnerships based on trust. And we hope this session today can contribute to that opportunity. The regional sessions, which are getting underway this month, and which today's event is one of the important ones, obviously, will build on this global dialogue and will further discuss and explore more details of some of these challenges and opportunities. And it will also identify specific regional needs, such as capacity building, training and education, and looking at some of the regional contextual factors that provide opportunities and challenges for co-design. Before I finish, I'd like to show you one more slide which looks at some of the next steps and key milestones for the Ocean Decade. So this will just give you an overview of where we are in the preparation phase and some of the key things coming up in the future. So as I mentioned, the implementation plan is currently being considered by the United Nations General Assembly. And we're hoping that this process will be finished in the next month or so. From now through to mid-2021, the Ocean Decade virtual series, which I just went through, will continue with a wide range of different activities and sessions. So please do keep an eye on our website, oceandecade.org, so that you can get details of the latest sessions. Between the 15th of October and the 15th of January, we have the first call for decade actions, which has been launched and which is currently active. And these calls for decade actions are extremely important because they are the ways in which the actions that will be implemented through the Ocean Decade will be identified. So again, please look on the Ocean Decade website to have more information on the call for decade actions and how you become involved. The 1st of January, obviously, the decade starts, and that will be a moment of great celebration for everybody. And then over next year, there will be the progressive rollout of stakeholder engagement mechanisms, governance and coordination structures, as well as a series of international and regional events to celebrate the launch of the decade with partners around the world. So with that, I will close. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you an excellent session, excellent discussions today. I'll be very interested to hear the discussions that come up. And in terms of keeping abreast of updated information on the Ocean Decade and the implementation plan, please do keep an eye on the Ocean Decade website, and you'll see the address there on the slide. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back to you, Wangxi.
Okay, thank you very much, Alison. I think indeed, the co-designing and solution-oriented stakeholder engagement will remain as keywords for the next years for the UN Decade development. Thank you very much for joining us, Alison. So before we start the panel discussion, I would like to take a little quiz for all participants to understand what kind of experience they have about the co-designing science. So yeah, I think I would like to invite all participants to, to click the option that you want to have, to the question that we displayed in the screen. I give you 10 seconds. What's your experience with the code design? Okay, let's close the poll and see the result. Obviously, we see most of our participants have a medium level of experience with the code design. A very limited, number of participants have very high, a lot of experience with the code design. So this is the purpose. That's why we organize the session today. I really hope, through today's discussion and also our future practice, we will gain more experience about this co-design, the science for the ocean we want. So let's move to the Foster plenary panel session with a focus on the challenges and also opportunities for co-designing the science. As I introduced earlier, we invite 5 panelists from respective communities, including policy-making community, from the private sectors, from local communities, and also research communities. So I would like to invite the first panelist, Dr. Zhang Haizhang from China, who is currently serving as the Chief Engineer and Director General of the Ministry of Natural Science of China. So Zhang Hai has been, involved in a lot of number of national policy in terms of ocean strategy and also ocean blue economy development. So let's hear some insights and suggestions that he would like to share with us from a perspective of a policymaker. So Zhang Hai, I think, okay. So due to some internet connection problem, I think Fang Li may deliver his speech on his behalf. Fang Li, your turn. We cannot hear you, Fang Li.
Muted. So, okay. Sorry, I'm muted because good afternoon. I'm Fang Li Qiao on behalf of Dr. Zhang Haizhang to have the presentation. As we all know, the West Pacific Ocean is one of the regions with the most frequent marine activity, the most significant impact of climate change, and the most degraded marine ecosystem function. Therefore, how to maintain the sustainability of marine ecosystem through innovation and fusion among science management and cooperation remains a vital task in the implementation of the UN decade in the region. So, from my point of view, the first challenge is lack of sufficient scientific understanding of marine ecosystem. For example, the value of marine ecosystem service has rarely conducted monitoring, and the research on ocean acidification, hypoxia, and eutrophication has not been deeply studied. Next slide, please. The second challenge is the support of marine research to decision making still has some distance from expectation, such as scientific basis supporting selection of marine protected area is insufficient, lack of knowledge to guide the implementation of a natural-based solution, and so on. Next, please. The third challenge is regional marine cooperation needed to take a stride forward to meet the need of countries to achieve sustainable ocean management. So next, please. Facing these challenges, we need to undertake systematic, interdisciplinary, and cross-cutting cooperation research and joint action to better protect the marine ecosystem and achieve the harmonious development of human beings and the oceans through strengthening integrated understanding of the ocean, enhancing the integration of knowledge in research and management, and conducting extensive regional cooperation. I have a few recommendations to share with you. The first recommendation, next one. to enhance the cooperation research of marine ecosystem to improve our knowledge, develop monitoring technology, and establish an automatic long-term multidisciplinary high-resolution real-time marine ecosystem monitoring system in order to solve the bottleneck of marine research. Strengthen the application of new technology such as artificial intelligence and blockchain to marine research, improving the value of information. Develop new climate ecological coupled model to carry out early warning and forecasting of marine ecology disasters. Explore the theory and method of integrated marine ecology using big data and artificial intelligence technology to integrate marine ecology data to find out the valuable ecological laws and mechanisms, and gradually expand them to solve ecological environmental problems closely related to human development. So next, please. Second recommendation, to promote the practice of integrated ecosystem-based marine management. Promote ecosystem-based adaptive governance, protection of restoration of natural infrastructure such as mangroves, coral reefs, and coastal forests. Implement comprehensive for marine ecological protection, stressing management of marine protected areas and manage marine plastic waste, encouraging the implementation of plastic prohibition to reduce the use of single-use plastic products and alternatives. Conduct assessment of the sustainability of marine ecosystem and their ability to provide human well-being from ecological, economic, and social dimensions to provide effective reference for marine management and decision makers. Develop a regional action framework for ocean ecosystem conservation and restoration. The maps of marine ecosystem and biodiversity conservation in the Western Pacific, the network of marine protection area in the Western Pacific, and the list of endangered marine species protection. So next, please. The third recommendation, to launch a West Pacific Marine Ecosystem Sustainable Vision Initiative. Encourage states to make a voluntary commitment to the protection and sustainable use of marine ecosystems in the Western Pacific, including policies, measures, targets, actions, technology resources, and financial resources. Establish a big data sharing and service system for marine ecosystem in the Western Pacific to provide public products for marine conservation and sustainable use. Attract social capital to join the action and support NGOs to carry out activities. Establish blue partnership of the Western Pacific stakeholders and develop an action framework plan for the implementation plan of the Western Pacific Ocean Decade. Next, please. So the conclusions. Ocean ecosystem in the Western Pacific region have not yet been understood well, and it's necessary to adopt new methods and technologies to carry out systematic research to realize knowledge fusion and value added. Scientifically sound policy and measure required comprehensive support of innovation research and practice, integrated ecology, natural-based solution. Blue partnership among stakeholders, among long-term cooperation and sharing experience among countries are key important. Fourth is ocean science policy interface, not only at national level, but also in the regional level, need further strengthening. Next, please. China will continuously support and contribute to the IOC and its submission of WESPAC to implement the UN Decade of Ocean Science. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Fang Li. I think for this very inspiration, presented on behalf of Shanghai. I think Shanghai has been working very hard those days, trying to contribute his idea perspective to their development of the UN decade at global level and also regional level. I think all the the suggestions, points presented in her intervention, I think will take into account. I do expect our policy communities could continuously engage together with our research community and other community as well, into their development and also implementation of the UN decade. Given the time constraint, I would go to the next speaker, inviting Dr. Boss Duan, to give some perspective, from point of view of local community and also based on his long years experience interaction with the local authority and the community. Duan, it's your turn, please.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. By the first slide, I would like to say something about the MPA effectiveness management, effective management of MPA in the region. You can see in the table, yeah, to see the poor management effectiveness in the many countries, and especially in the Southeast Asia, it is only 2% of MPA is under effective management, and 2/3 is under not effective management. So, by the diagram, you can see another fact that we have correlative is very important in the region, but you see here in Southeast Asia, and in the high proportion of correlative is outside of MPA. That is a big challenge for MPA management and also for function MPA in correlative management. And actually, talking about the effectiveness of management of MPA and correlative involved, we have a many diverse, we have a many intervention at regional level, national level. We need to improve function of MPA and to make MPA more effective. In this talk, I would like to talk about how to engage community to improve MPA function. And as some people mentioned, it is very important how we can have a good interaction between science and local communities. Next slide, please. For the second slide, I would like to mention about the function of MPA for the on fishery enhancements. Yeah, by this we can have a challenges. We have many challenges. Why low effectiveness in MPA management with the function on fishery enhancement? We understand that many marine protected area now is very good serving for tourism development, but not for fishery enhancement. Yes. The problem is that we have no data information about the spawning and nursery living resource living in the MPA. We have a very poor data on some habitat-related species like lobster, abalone, sea cucumber. Very poor statistics data about this. And when you see about the zoning MPA, you can see the MPA development is mainly based on the biodiversity, biology and community structure and resources here, but very poor information related to fisheries. And another thing we mentioned is that we have a poor knowledge on poor methodology, scientific methodology in fishery assessment for habitat related resources. I would like to say, for example, you have a very good data from FAO, from national statistics on the pelagic fish, for example, but for the habitat-related species, we have a very poor data. And to overcome these challenges, we apply some activity. We conduct some activity using approach in knowledge local community in establishment management of fishery future. Taking account of scientific interpretation in Fukuok MPA. And in this island, we have a many activity and we work closely with the community and we have a very good interaction between scientists and communities. Next slide, please. In next slide, I will show you some activity conducted in MPA. And in this, under the transboundary demonstration project of the UNFG of South Asia project, and also the national project, we have some activity to improve management of fish token habitat link by development of fishery future, not only inside but also outside MPA in this island. And in this activity, we apply the approach co-design. It means that the local community and scientists to work together to identify active species, mean the important species for the local fishermen, and higher distribution of spawning nursery grounds, and then we establish the map of the nursery and also the fish spawning ground of the active species. And we work closely with the community to collect specimens using local techniques. Not easy to collect juvenile or spot in coral reef or seagrass beds. And we have to use local divers to work with them and then to collect specimens. And we also developed the data book for the daily record of fishing production in coral reef and seagrass. And based on that, we can understand what is the key species in the key resources in the area. And based on that, we can develop the adaptive management. And the benefit, we can see the benefit for conservation. Some species can be preserved and improve the local livelihood by increasing their production collected from coral reef and seagrass. And through this experience, we can understand that the indigenous knowledge and as well local stakeholders was used effectively and very helpful for development of management. And we also established a very good linkage between among the manager, fisherman authority, and scientists. And this activity supports strongly for the food employee in their management. And next slide. In next slide, I mentioned another issue related to habitat management in the MPAs. Everybody recognize the degradation coral reef and decline of their function on ecosystem service. And we face many challenges for the coral reef and also other related ecosystem. And now we have an increased impact of anthropogenic activity and climate change. And we consider about the coral reef resilient, but it is new concept for scientists, not only for managers, but also for scientists in the region. And in employee development and management, we have a poor consideration of coral reef resilience under the gender of the nature and also societies. And these challenges require to do good monitoring habitat change, understand the threat, and to develop adaptive management with the participation of local community and private sector on coral reef related tourism. Everybody that the coral reef related tourism developed very well in our region. And I would like to show you a good practice by the project coral reef monitoring under the project coral reef monitoring under the project namely capacity building for local community in coral reef management and protection included by in Central Vietnam. And in this, we work closely with the local community and private sector in selecting indicator appropriate to local environment and livelihood, and work closely to develop annual regular monitoring, and also important, only the local can record the abnormal phenomena like the coral bleaching, coral torn starfish, and other impact to coral reefs. And based on the monitoring data and tracks, and the local community and authority can develop the adaptive action for in planning for coral reef conservation and for sustainable tourism. And next slide, I would like to show you some feedback about the training. I think it is very important to have a good training for the typical methodology for coral reef monitoring for local community and tourist sector. And in Vietnam now, in some MPA, the local people and MPA staff can do their activity on coral reef monitoring, like in not only in Premium Bay, as I mentioned, but also for Pulau Cham in Quảng Nam province and Côn Đảo National Park, and the local staff, local community and MPA staff can do monitoring, and it is very helpful for adaptive management in coral reef. And you can see in the figure on the right side, you can see it is the one training made by scientists for the local community with the mapping, with the project, with the projector, and then they can work very closely. And by the end of the talk, I think MPA management still limited in many countries in the region. And it requires effort from regional network, as Fang mentioned, a network, but also as national level. But the very important to have a engagement of community in the MPA we can work together to improve the poor management of MPA and poor connectivity among MPA in the region at present time. And I hope in the near future we can develop a good network in the region, and also to involve not only national level but also the community level. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Duan. I think your intervention indeed highlight the importance of co-designing, with our local community, and also benefit from the indigenous knowledge in terms of MPA management. So we can further explore whether we can, document or network those kind of best practice at the national level, at coast community level, and further, contribute those best practice to the UN Decade Ocean Science. Thank you very much, Duan. The next speakers, I think, is very unique. I think we invited from our private sector, Professor Lina Wadi from Indonesia. Actually, she is the founder of the ocean fresh industry, a well-known and also respected, established commercial skincare owned manufacturer based on the products extracted from seaweed. So Professor Lina, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee to invite me to share what we are doing here in Indonesia. So this is, I think, is sharing what we have done to empower local community regarding processing, especially for seaweed, to improve their value. So what we call here is market-driven community-based marine industrial development, myself and biotechnology. So I work all in this business is relating to biotechnology. If you see here, the above picture is our community within Indonesia. They join our business collaboration, processing, also farming the marine resources, especially seaweed. And then the bottom picture is all the product that we already sell in the market, involving the community in the business, especially providing raw material or intermediate product. This includes very famous Indonesian batik using seaweed natural color, also various of personal care ingredient, and also organic fertilizer derived from seaweed. Next, please. Next, please. So this is what we have done, and we keep doing it right now, is how we transfer the knowledge from the university to the local people in order to improve their capacity building. So if you look at this diagram here, the center of the target is a coastal community. They do marine farming and also processing intermediate product. that are bought by Ocean Fresh. This is a private company as a market, and also the owner of the technology, and in some cases they also do investment. So to initiate the business, usually our government technical ministry like Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Affairs, they provide necessary infrastructure and also machinery for the coastal communities, and also they do human capacity building. How we get the technology? Of course, we collaborate with the Ministry of Research and Technology. The ministry provide competitive grant to the university. Myself also part of the IBB University. So in this university, we have researcher that they produce applied technology, and also they conducted training and education for the community. So in addition to all the stakeholders, we also supported by the non-government organization worldwide, like you said, RARE, Compact Australia, and also the Nature Conservation. Both of NGO focus on human capacity building of the coastal community as a target beneficiary. Next, please. Next, please. Okay, this is the map of implemented community-based industrial collaboration within Indonesia. If you see, Indonesia is a huge country with more than 17,000 islands. You see here, we just started, I mean, maybe several islands like Java, West Java, East Java, West Nusa Tenggara, East Nusa Tenggara, and also Sulawesi. So what we found here during implementing our program, we found some key points that need to be addressed in the following decade. This is human capacity building of the beneficiary is relatively low, and some of them, they show persistent behavior. And then this is the third one is less young generation interested in small medium enterprises. This is very important for us. We would like to have young generation to sustain this business activity. And then the fourth is marine spatial planning. If you see that, as I mentioned, Indonesia is a huge country, and some districts already generate or establish regulation on marine spatial planning, but some not yet. So this is will be also the key issue for us, especially to develop marine-based community industries. Next, please. Okay, before I end my presentation, this is our proposed collaborating model for empowering coastal communities. So there are at least three institutes that need to be involved in the program. The first is, of course, the community as a target beneficiary. This consists of small, medium enterprises and also group of farmers or processors. And then this need to be supported by business, because without business, I think it's very difficult to improve their economic life. They have to sell what they produce. After training, and then they know the technology, they have to find the market. It's very important. That's why they have to collaborate with business institute. So in this case, we encourage business as also one of investor and as technology owner. University have technology, but business is more on market oriented. And also how to transfer this to directly to local community is also very important, because they will support all the hosts, will support the business entity. And in addition also, we have to collaborate, or we have to put the business as also market for the product produced by the community. And of course, as I mentioned before, is human capacity building from both sides is very important. So business have to be collaborate with the university or research center. As I mentioned, that we have a competitive grant. It's not just block grant, but we have to propose competitive to hand in competitive proposal to the ministry to be able to get a fund. So by this collaboration from the ministry and then the university, we will develop or we will generate the technology, and we are requested to transfer whether to business or directly to the community. And we also do training, and also again, a human capacity is very important. The government, in addition to provide research grant for university, also they do human capacity building, but they also act as regulator, especially for marine spatial planning and social investor, because we the community really needs some initial investment to run the business, and NGO or university usually is restricted to do so. So we encourage the government to provide some initial infrastructure for the community. And banking is also the key parameter for the successful for this program. You know, the community usually they don't have asset to be provide as collateral. So we need national bank, government bank to provide what we call a social loan. Especially it's not commercial, but maybe it's a loan with very low interest, or maybe no interest is much better. So again, human capacity building. So all this will come to community as a target to improve their economic life. Also, in turn, we can join with other topic like program for conservation and others. So this all I present. So I'm pleased to have your comment and also your input to be to improve or to effectively implement our program within in Indonesia, and also we hope that we can also replicate in another place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lina.
Next,
I think you're for sharing.
Yes.
Very important,
yes,
the knowledge transformation model, co-designing with the government, with the industry, with the university and the research. I think this is quite important to, for us to really harness the power of science to help our coastal community. Thank you very much. I hope this model could be really, replicated in some, area of the region. So we have the next panel speakers, and they're respectively from our research community, but respectively specialized in social science and also natural science. I would like to invite the first speaker, Dr. Makino Misutaku from University of Tokyo, and also he has very strong social science background. I believe his intervention will give us another new horizontal how we can conduct the co-designing approach, in the UN Decade of Science. The floor is yours, Makino-san.
Thank you, Wensi. Today, I would like to share some of my experiences in co-designing the marine science. First, why do we need the co-designing processes? In my understanding, there are at least 3 main reasons for that. First, as all of us know, there is a great biological and cultural diversity in the western part of the Pacific. We have the world's highest biodiversity, and we have therefore variety of fishing gears, fishing vessels, as well as a variety of seafood cooking cultures, utilizations. Therefore, you need to tailor-made your research based on the local situations. Otherwise, your study will be not applicable or too theoretical. Number 2, the ocean we want is different from country to country, from society to society. For example, seaweed and octopus are very popular fisheries resources in some culture, some societies, but not in others. Whale is very important for tourism in some areas, but in other areas, it is an important fisheries resources. These differences reinforce the idea that management objectives or assessment criteria is a societal choice by the local people, not by the researchers like us. Number 3, there is no academic silos or disciplinary fragmentations in the real local communities. As the SDG 14 is closely linked to other SDGs, so the co-designed research will automatically become interdisciplinary and cross-sector research, which is very beneficial, I think. Next, please. Now, please let me share some of my experiences. Next, please. Yes. The first case is a hairtail fisheries management project in Japan. At the very beginning of this project, we discussed with local stakeholders. Here, local stakeholder means local fishermen, local fish processors, retailers, local government officials, and school teachers. We discussed about the important factors for the sustainable fisheries in this area. And based on that discussion, we identified objective variables of our theoretical models shown here. So basically, we co-designed the structure of our theoretical model. Then the local stakeholders developed the implementation strategy of the model results. This was one of the most successful projects in my career. The second case is a smartphone-based ecosystem monitoring in Indonesia. This is a kind of citizen science. We organized local community meetings for more than 10 times at the coastal area of Indonesia and discussed what were the local issues and what we should monitor using the smartphone. The result is the 5 monitoring items shown here. Also, we co-designed the smartphone application software, which is easy to use for local people. Presumably, as a result of these processes, local people have a sense of ownership of this project, embracing this project as their own. Next, please. So next is the final slide. This is the list of the 5 lessons I learned. First, respect the local realities because we learn from the local people. Number 2, enjoy the diversity and unexpectedness. Diversity is not an obstacle, not a barrier, but a richness, source of innovation. Local partners are very important because you cannot do everything. So they will help you a lot. Finding a good local partner is very important. Number 4, be open and flexible in terms of research structures, project team membership, and so on. Finally, engage younger generations because they are honest and straightforward to you and very often give you innovative opinions and advices based on the local reality. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Makino-san. Indeed, I think this is a very different approach from the social science point of view. I think most of our participants here also, usually working on natural science field, and may not have much more interaction with the social scientists. I do hope, in the UN decade, we can have more interaction with our social scientist community, to really, carry forward the UN decade and also achieve its vision and also challenges. So I would like to invite another scientist, but specialized in natural science, scientific aspect, Dr. Jae-ha Lee from Korea, I think, who is a very well-known scientist in this region, and many people has know him for long years. So Jae-ha, I think, please.
Okay. Thank you, Wenxi. Next slide. My presentation is focusing on the co-design, but also a little bit focusing on the number 2 and 6 of the criteria for endorsement of decade actions. So next slide. For co-design science, I think that it should be a common concern of the many countries. Also, the joint participation of many countries is possible. So the many countries join together, and in the view of the geography, the Western Pacific Ocean is a keyword as marginal seas, Western boundary current, and islands. So we need include all of these keywords in the project or program. And for the solution-oriented science, due to the nature of the ocean research, the transdisciplinary and or interdisciplinary research is efficient or essential to achieve decade outcomes. Another thing is that we need to connect the research society with the general public. It's very important. In the previous presentation shows a very nice example. Because the general public is the end users, so we need something. Next slide. The discussions in the past North Pacific Regional Planning Workshop in Tokyo in August last year, it was a very good workshops. There is a good summary, and it's you can find in the web page of the WebPack. And this slide is only example in relation to the marine ecosystem. The upper boxes describe about the natural and the social context, and the lower box describes about science to be done. So we have already discussed such like issues. So the next slide, please. I would like to point out one problem. Researchers like me, as the institution is closely connection with the funding agents or government officials. But there is very weak connection between institution and the general citizens. The right-hand side panel cartoon shows an examples. We researchers are doing to study about ocean warming, and then we provide the result to the government officials, and then government officials prepare the fisheries policy, for example. However, the general public, like general citizens, sometimes do not need such kind of the fisheries policy. They want to know the price or quality of the fishes, sashimi or sushi, something like that. So we need some connection between the researchers and final end users. So in the ocean decade period, researchers must produce the customized research output to the general public, as well as research results for policy makings. Next slide. Here is one example I suggest, called CSK2. CSK is cooperative study of the Kuroshio and the adjacent regions, which was carried out in the period from 1965 to 1979. Now, after 30 years, this program, we are planning to carry another one, second page of the CSK, called the CSK2. The target area is western boundary current and the marginal seas. Thus, many nations, many countries can join into this program. And the issues for research include climate, ecosystem, biodiversity, and the marine debris. So these are common interests for every country. And issues for public, these are related to the weather, digester, food, and environment. So this one is a very good example for solution-oriented research work. And for the UNDAS outcomes is related to the clean ocean, healthy ocean, productive ocean, and predicted ocean. So I suggest such like program or project is very good for the co-delivery and solution-oriented topics. Next one. However, we have some barriers to do such like work. The domestic barriers are disconnection between the different disciplines. Even in the research community, there is a big barrier between natural science and the social science. Second one is high deviation in people's perception of problems. Some people understand for the issues, but some people do not. And third one is the low national policy priority. In every country, the top priority goes to national security, economy, and welfare, and so on. The ocean research is a very low priority. That is problem. The international problem is the first one is the differences in policy priority by countries, like domestic problem. And second one is intensifying polarization of the research infrastructures. The resources and the manpower are very different by countries. And the third one is the very important problem. EEG is new problems. I think that this one is getting worse. So some countries are very conservative for the MSR and the EEG. So we needed to ease to solve such kind of problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeha, for consolidating all the barriers that are existing at the domestic and the international level for this transdisciplinary and also collaborative among collaborations with our countries. I think the UNDAC indeed provide a very challenging path, but a meaningful way, for all of us to move forward in order really to deliver, the benefit to our society, including local communities. Okay, thank you very much for all our 5 panelists from different communities. Okay, we're slightly behind the schedule. So let me just pick up one questions from the box. I think maybe most of our participants are still digesting the information received within such a short time, there are not many questions that has been provided there. Let me just pick one from Kim Juniper. WestPac and PACES co-organized a regional planning meeting for the North Pacific last year. Will there be a North Pacific equivalent of the virtual session? Oh yes, the keyword as I cited, the stakeholder and also partnership is always remain the key to the success of the UN decade. So working together with all other partners, including PACES, I think is one of priority, for IOC and also IOC subcommission in order to, move forward to achieve the vision of the UN decade. This time, because, due to the COVID-19, we're not going to, co-organize the meeting together with our partner from that side, PACES, because due to the different time zone. So, but indeed, we are very much remain open mandate for any collaboration in the near future with PACES and other partners as well. So this is another question, I think, okay, from small island developing country requesting whether there's any eco-friendly shipyard mode, for shipbuilding. I think this is something very much related to their innovation of their resources. So this is something I think is a quite new area to me, but certainly I think I will take note of this request and also try to reach out to our shipbuilding community and try to provide feedback to you after this session. Yes, again, I do encourage all of you, to type your questions in the question box as soon as you have, because as you see, time is quite urgent. It's quite limited, so please do so as early as possible. So if you don't mind, I would like to, start the panel 2, focusing on the capacity development and the resources need at the regional level in order to achieve their vision and also, decade actions, for the next 10 years. So we have totally 6 panelists. The first and the foremost, I would like to invite our representative from Early Ocean Korea Network, professional network. I think Dr. Nanita from Thailand, to share your consideration and also concerns and also expectation about the UN decade. The floor is yours, Nanita.
Thank you very much, Wensi. สวัสดีค่ะ Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to join the regional webinar today as a representative of young scientists. In my talk, I will present some of questions that I have kept asking myself during the beginning of my career, and then my experience working with corals. Till today, I have more understand what important need to me in development of my career. I believe will be similar to other young scientists as well. I have been working on coral for many tasks, starting from coral taxonomy, reproduction, recruitment, coral disease, and eventually coral rehabilitation for the management purpose. One of my regular work is monitoring coral reefs for evaluate the status of reefs and including environmental parameters report to the government every year. In many places, there are several of degradation of coral. The cause of degradation, in some cases, is very easy to understand. It comes from anthropogenic activities and high contamination of nutrients. However, in many cases, I could have not a good explanation or answer why, until I had an opportunity to work with nation and international experts through the international cooperation between my research center with University of Bremen and Alfred Wegener Institute in Germany. I had a chance to learn much more about the physical factors, which really opened my world and increased my knowledge. After all, I understood more of the why and be able to answer what was the reason behind my earlier career. Next slide, please. I would like to give you a short example particularly on coral bleaching and coral rehabilitation. Coral bleaching is one of the major regional and global threats to coral reef, which are caused by an increase in ocean temperatures. Which the question we have is why there were coral bleaching in some years, while the other years no coral bleaching. Some reef bleach much more than the other size, or some coral colony even within the same species bleach, while the other colony is not bleached. So there are many factors that could affect on coral bleaching susceptibility level from very small scale, such as the genetic differentiation, to the large scale of climate process. Next slide, please. After all, I hope we can improve coral rehabilitation technique. At the I'm sorry, could you please go back again? I would like to continue a little bit more about coral bleaching. Is the main cause of coral bleaching region or global oceanographic and climate interaction process. We believe that if we can understand the regional and global ocean and climate process, including biological response well, the knowledge could help us to develop an accurate local scale coral bleaching prediction. Therefore, my coral team has been working with the oceanographer team, and we found that the link between large-scale ocean and climate process could influence on prolonged high sea surface temperature in the late summer monsoon, particularly during the degradation period of the strong El Nino year. Based on ground truth checking of coral bleaching in Thai waters, and then we developed bleaching model threshold and predict for Thailand. Could you please next slide? This coral bleaching prediction could help to communicate to the policy maker or administrator in the government who can plan to minimize the impact on coral. The government could also arrange the financial support in S1 for rehabilitation after bleaching event. I learned that natural ecosystem is not easy to understand through only one or two other aspects. It is not also difficult to interact with non-academic and researchers from other disciplines in research projects. Although many of us would say, yes, sure, we need disciplinary research. However, most of us were trained in disciplinary subjects, or it might be hard to understand the other. Please, next slide. Talking about coral rehabilitation, after all, I hope we can improve coral rehabilitation technique, because at the present, coral transplantation is the most often people use for coral rehabilitation, which consume a lot of manpower and budget, and still have many other limitations. I hope interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research can help us to increase efficiency rehabilitation technique in the near future. Next slide, please. Finally, for us as a young scientist, it's not easy to understand all of this. It's not easy to understand an interaction of coupling ocean processes and ecosystem, which need integration of knowledge or interdisciplinary. This is also lack of leadership. The person who can effectively point out the right direction and inspire or encourage your young scientists to develop their development potential. Therefore, we are urgently need to increase capacity through potential development to better understand the importance of interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary ocean science for our research development to support the government. Actually, nowadays, young scientists are trying to create their own opportunity to learning and sharing their knowledge via social media in order to be the best in their research and carry their idea to the public domain. It would be great benefit to have an opportunity working with various experts through national and international or a regular face-to-face transdisciplinary method workshop in a way that easily accessible for early career researchers with different disciplinary backgrounds. This will enable learning from the best practice case. This also brings together early career researchers to enable mature learning from personal experience and help finding mentor with experience in transdisciplinary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nanita. Yeah, there are a lot of early career scientists and younger scientists and also professionals in this region who are indeed in need of a lot of assistance. Let's expect the UN decade can bring more opportunity, to young scientists like you. So our next speaker from our coastal governance community, I think, Miss Amy is very well known, person, serving as the executive director for PAMC. PAMC is well known for its implementation of ICM framework innovation. So let's share the PAMC's perspective, how our PAMC used the science applied science for science-based ICM framework. Amy, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm trying to get my presentation up, or let's hang on a second. What's wrong with this? Okay, because it says share my webcam, but you will be doing it from your end, right?
Yes.
No, okay. So let's see. Oh, okay, there you go. Sorry about that. So the title of my presentation is Capacity Development and Resource Needs on Integrated Coastal Governance and Management in the East Asian Seas. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. Just a short introduction to PAMC, because even if once he says I'm well known, I'm not really sure about that, no? So our mission is to foster and sustain healthy and resilient coasts and oceans, communities and economies across the seas of East Asia through integrated management solutions and partnerships. We have 11 country partners and almost 24 non-country partners, including IOC, Westpac. So I would like to emphasize the non-country partners here because they actually, we cover a diverse set of joint initiatives with them that essentially build capacity for improved awareness and promote the need for stronger science policy interface. We generate data, information, scientific knowledge, and products, capturing good practices that support policy, strategic planning, and implementation of management programs that address issues ranging from climate change, biodiversity conservation, pollution prevention, fisheries, sustainable livelihood development, and water use and conservation. So we emphasize very much integrated management solutions and partnerships. Actually, these phrases have also been emphasized in the previous panel. So I'm pleased that we are of the same minds and that there is some sort of complementarity between the research, the hard research and the users of those research, which PAMC would like to be identified with. Next slide, please.
Your time delay.
Okay, yeah, never mind. Okay, so we also have a network of local governments that we work with. So PAMC operates at 3 levels. We have the shared regional strategy, and then we work with national government partners, which are the focal points are country partners with the ministries of environment or transportation, depending on the country. But at the national, local level, where the who are the forerunners or frontliners on coastal ocean and governance, we are present in most countries, and we have over 50 local governments and 2 associate members, which First Institute of Oceanography is one of them. And I'm pleased that Dr. Fangsi Lee is actually with us today. And so this network of local governments actually was developed to enhance the capacity of local governments to plan and manage their coastal and marine resources for sustainable use. We promote the application of integrated planning and facilitate the linkage also between scientific technical institutions and local governments in order to provide capacity building and scientific input to local government decision-making, policies, and programs. We are trying to get them also to implement innovative financing mechanisms, and this is one of the gaps that we would like to build into working towards sustainable and inclusive blue economy. And we are strong on multi-stakeholder involvement in managing coastal and marine resources, but we could do more as well, no? And then also enhancing local coastal governance, as well as interagency and multi-sectoral coordination mechanisms in dealing with issues. Next slide, please. So along with the network of local governments, we have adjacent network of learning centers and regional centers of excellence. And we are also present in a lot of countries. There are at the moment 18 local universities and academic institutions, plus 3 regional centers of excellence with the Coastal and Ocean Management Institute in China, based in Xiamen University, the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in Japan, and the University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute. So these learning centers is a linkage of multiple scientific institutions that help improve knowledge and capacity in the East Asian Seas region. And it actually makes for efficient problem solving in focused collaboration at the local level, because while I don't have the map here, they are adjacent to the local governments that they are meant to support and work with. And so there has been fruitful core capabilities on coastal and ocean management that we have been able to build, but it could be strengthened some more. So we have that power and network, which we hope to capitalize in terms of capacity development, leading towards the decade of ocean science that will be launched next year. Next slide, please. Okay. A new program that we have introduced that's focused on the chief executives at the local level is this joint PEMSI network of local government and PEPSI network of learning centers, learning forum. And this is still built, focused on capacity building approach based on the identified needs and priorities of the local chief executives. And we will be doing this through joint science policy forum, joint ICM executive training courses, and ICM study tour geared towards local executives. And this will be a platform for exchange, like mayor to mayor, sharing and use of experiences, information, and technologies, including best practices to optimize available scientific information for policy and decision makers. So this is one focus target of the research that we will be doing. The applied research that we will be obtaining, basically. Next slide, please. So in terms of co-designing scientific research and the shared regional strategies, I am pleased that our recommendation, we had a lot of recommendations at the stakeholder forum in Japan last year, but we zeroed in on 2, which we thought were missing at that time. But we are pleased that this is being addressed now. We consider the importance of socioeconomic policy research, action solution, and activities, and in the inclusion of indigenous knowledge and citizen science, or knowledge generation rather than pure development of new science, because we felt that this is very important, and these were the identified needs from our local government partners as well. Now, PEMSI, as I mentioned, our role is a user. So we would like to help promote and facilitate science and policy interface, identified in our shared strategy. And the way that we'd like to do this is co-design context-appropriate capacity development programs and trainings of use and application of science and tools that will be generated by the scientists, the consortium that IOC Westpac will be building. And then we could also co-host early career researchers in our ICM sites. And lastly, we would like to build upon this multidisciplinary thought and action on the decade of ocean science want to promote through building a new generation of coastal managers and leaders. As PEMC founder would always say, we need leaders that actually think like a scientist, act like a manager, and speak like a diplomat. And that can't come from just one discipline. It has to be intersectoral, cross-sectoral, and interdisciplinary. Next slide, please. This is my last slide. Okay. Some examples of the research needs that were identified from the East Asian Seas partners, and this is just for 5 years. There was a long list, but I would just like to focus on a few, and these were also identified in the previous presentation, the first panel. You know, the functional interdependency of terrestrial and marine ecosystems when we scale up integrated coastal management, you know, looking at priority coastal and watershed areas, and then land and sea interaction. Connectivity study for cooperative management in target large marine ecosystems, transboundary marine species, for example, in marine protected areas. Interrelationship between global greenhouse gas emission and local air pollution conditions, and that socioeconomic impacts from those maritime related emissions. Nature, sources, and transport of marine litter and plastics, socioeconomic impacts of plastic pollution and reduction measures, state of the river basin reporting, citizen science and linking traditional knowledge with modern science, adapting successful models of blue economy investments and sustaining financing in coastal and river basin management. I think this is something that we would like the decade of ocean science to focus. Nobody has mentioned about the impacts of the global pandemic. And so there's a clamor for environmental and socioeconomic impacts, you know, post-pandemic, what is our playlist? And then lastly, gender responsiveness and mainstreaming. I know these are not rocket science or earth shaking, but these are actually the needs that were identified in the next 5 years from many of our country partners. And I think some of this were also mentioned in the previous research panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. I believe there are a lot of, promising potential area for collective efforts, within the framework of UN decade. So due to the time constraints, I have to also, remind all our panelists to limit your presentation within 5 minutes. So next speaker, I would like to invite our representative from industry, the Mr. Hamin Do, from our, the pharmaceutical company in Vietnam. Yeah, the floor is yours, Ms. Duan.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I am Hamin Duan. I am pharmacist. I'm from Hamin Techno Company from Vietnam. My major is a pharmaceutical technology and extraction of the bioactive substance. This is my great honor to be here to speak you about building the value chain of Vietnamese seaweed. The seaweed is considered as one of the potential commodities of the fishery, season with high economic values. Vietnam also have many favorable conditions in seaweed control. So we wish to develop of the Vietnamese seaweed industry to supply domestic and international markets. Next slide, please. Yes. So we are IOC to connect and cooperate on two fields. One is about the science, the cognitive scientists to transfer and the training of the seaweed seed production techniques, research on the most advanced seaweed extraction technique available today. Cooperation and exchange of the experts in the field of the seed production and extraction of the bioactive substance from seaweed. Regarding about the finance, Hamilton will invest the finance and investment corporation, Seaweed Research Center. The seaweed extraction factory with scale of 1,000 tons per year. In the future, the plant can develop to 500,000 tons per year. Next slide, please. Yes. So the intent development plan, the first quarter of the 2021, the project's preparation, and the end of 2021, research center established, and the quarter one, 2021-22, the building the seaweed extraction factory with the scale of 1,000 tons per year. And we want you to find funds, the scientists and investors to interest in the Vietnamese seaweed industry to cooperate and develop and get the benefit with the HRs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duan. I think this is quite challenging. I think you know, for UN decade, you know, to meet the needs of all stakeholders and also in particular our industry. But it's very encouraging. We can hear that, you know, what capacity the industry still need, and also what in return the industry could also provide support to marine scientific cooperation. So I think this is something very common for many industry ocean related in this region. So let's just invite the next speaker from our policymaker, Pak Ogi, the Deputy Chair of the Indonesia Institute of Science, to share his perspective of what role that policymaker, you know, should play or can play in the UN decade, and what resources available that we can further leverage over the next 10 years. The floor is yours, Pak Ogi.
Thank you very much, Pak Wensi. Thank you for the opportunity. We have found that our ocean is changing. Much of the ocean are now seriously degraded with changes and losses in the structure, function, and benefit due to, among others, loss of biodiversity, climate change, pollution, overfishing, earthquake, and tsunami. And I believe through the ocean decade, we try to gather ocean stakeholders to ensure ocean science can fully support countries in creating improved conditions for sustainable development of the ocean. We do understand that there is a major disparity in the capacity for ocean research between developed and developing countries. In the West Pacific region, especially, there is an urgent need to build capacity and capability, including small island developing states and least developed countries. Next slide, please. There are several future challenges on ocean research, especially in small and outermost islands, that need to be accommodated for the region, such as research infrastructure, disaster resilience, social sciences, including conflict, borders, local knowledge, as well as energy and waste, Internet of Things, bioprospecting, and multi-party collaboration, including community. The community has now become more and more important challenge. For example, in the case of Coral Triangle Initiative, or CTI, that covers 6 countries, it supports approximately 120 million coastal communities. Next slide, please. In the case of Indonesia, one of the policies regarding research, innovation, and development is how research could help to solve the problem in the community, especially through appropriate technology. Within Indonesian universities, there is a pillar of university consisting of teaching, research, and community empowerment or services. The ministry has decided that the community program is a research-based program and must be multidisciplinary and a cross-sector approach. On the other hand, there is also non-ministerial research institution that also provide services to empower the community. Next slide, please. Indonesian Institute of Sciences, or LIPI, has been the oldest institution which served as the national research institution with open infrastructure, including human resources and facilities. Its role as a hub for multi-party collaboration in ocean research, both national and regional, has been more and more significant, both for research and community services. For example, LIPI has managed a World Bank-funded community-based coral reef rehabilitation and management project, or CORMAP. Next slide, please. Regional Training and Research Center, Marine Biodiversity and Ecosystem Health, is a significant contribution of LIPI along with its partners that has gained more and more reputation in the regional level for its initiative for developing and strengthening capacity and capability of human resources in the West Indo-Pacific region. Next slide, please. As concluding remarks, I would like to highlight the following things. Number one, community empowerment is important part of the capacity development of the ocean this decade in the region. And secondly, community empowerment ideally should be research-based program and multidisciplinary and cross-sector. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Park. I think, this is something, I think for our early career professionals should be very happy to hear about what resources and also capacity development opportunity that, our partner country could provide in the near future. Next, I would like to invite the perspective from our research community, about what capacity development needs and what kind of resources that could be provided, over the next 10 years. Finally, it's your turn, please. Finally, we cannot hear you. Please unmute your microphone. Finally, we cannot hear you.
Yeah, okay. So it's not the control is not on my side. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my great pleasure to share some ideas on capacity development with all of you. To my understanding, from the point of view of science, capacity development mainly contains 3 parts: observation ability, prediction skill, and capacity building. For each part, I would like to review the main progresses and analyze where we should go in the coming decade. Firstly, on the ocean observation, to my knowledge, there have been 3 revolutionary main progresses on ocean observation in history. The CSAT, launched by the United States in 1978, provided us the first chance to overview the global ocean in real time. And recently, China contributed much on ocean satellite observation. The second jump is the titrating buoy area in the tropical Pacific, which started in the 1980s and led us to have the ability to monitor and provide the initial conditions for the prediction of ENSO, which clearly demonstrated the dominant role of ocean in climate system. Then, started at the beginning of this century, the Argo floats provide us the third jump in monitoring the global ocean. This third step is also accompanied by gliders, autonomous vehicles, and sensors attached on marine animals. So we have crossed the ocean satellite era, buoy era, and robot era. So next slide, please. Although we have sea goose, near goose, and Westpac, however, we are still facing the following challenges. The cost of ocean observation is still very high. The observation mainly focus on physical parameters, and biogeochemical observations are crying needed. We are lack of observation ability in deep oceans, in polar areas, and in the southern oceans. Next slide, please. Secondly, on ocean prediction. Half century ago, the first ocean general circulation model was developed. So next, please. Yeah. Was developed at GFDL. With the computer had been getting more and more powerful, tremendous efforts have been made on ocean model development since then. However, the huge simulation and forecasting error for nearly all ocean models had been persistent. We found the key role of small-scale surface wave in large-scale ocean circulation and climate change, developed the first surface wave tide circulation fully coupled model in the world. And the bottleneck model error is dramatically reduced to share the benefit of this scientific breakthrough through co-design among leading scientists from China, Thailand, and Malaysia. IOC Westpac initiated the Ocean Forecasting System project in 1910, and many other countries involved and contributed on how to implement the OFS system after that. The OFS started to provide operational forecast service from 2012. As an example, 2 ferry boats had accident off Phuket of Thailand in July 2018. Through close cooperation among scientists of Thailand and China, rapid and accurate search and rescue area was forecasted, which clearly showed the great value of international cooperation and the co-design of science for management. Next slide, please. The main challenge include we are lacking of user-driven marine ecosystem prediction, and the prediction should be couple model-based, scalable, fast and fine resolution, so it can be called smart prediction. Thirdly, on the capacity building, outstanding achievements on capacity building have been achieved in Westpac region, especially on the development of regional training and research center, we call the RTRC. The first LOC, RTRC of Ocean Dynamics and Climate, was established in 2010. Then, RTRC in Indonesia in 2016, 3 RTRCs in Vietnam, China, Philippines in 2019, respectively. So the big success of RTRC in Westpac is from the co-design among host country, IOC, Westpac office, lecturers, and trainees. So next slide, please. The main challenge for capacity building in the decade include in the scientific community, the transfer of ocean science and technology between senior and junior research generations has received much attention during the past decade. However, the transfer of ocean knowledge among science community, decision makers, and the public is still quite weak. How to transfer ocean technology to primary, middle, and high school is also a challenge. The transfer of oceanic technology, knowledge, and best practice experience from advanced countries to least developed countries and small island countries remains a huge task. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fang Li. I think you have been actively engaged in the EBG, Executive Planning Group of UN Decade. And we do, hope in the future under IOC and also EPG of the UN Decade, and also the future UN Advisory Body, Decade Advisory Body, could give us, the continuous guidance from time to time, in order to get us how to, better develop the science to serve the needs of our societies. Thank you very much. So we have the last panelist, last but not least, I think is very important. I would like to invite Dr. Atsushi Tsunami, the president of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation in Japan, to share his perspective, about their capacity development needs on what kind of resources available or we could further leverage in the decade. I think Tsunami-san has been serving many important positions in Japan. I think this is a very, helpful for our region, to work together with our donor and the foundation network. Yeah, Tsunami-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Zhu. Thank you for the kind introduction. And I'm Atsushi Tsunami, the president of Sasakawa Peace Foundation and the head of the Ocean Policy Research Institute in Japan. First, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to join this very important event. Today, I want to provide a perspective on a new initiative for maritime cooperation in Western Pacific and adjacent areas towards the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. As we know, in today's Western Pacific and adjacent areas, a variety of marine issues are emerging, including marine litter, marine plastic waste, declining fishery resources, IUU fishing, marine disasters, and the spread of infectious diseases in tourist vessels. In terms of the world's ocean as a whole, ocean levels are rising due to global warming. Marine ecosystems are facing a crisis due to progressive acidification and anoxia. It is already well known that all of these ocean issues are greatly related to the nature of human society. Human society's wisdom is now being challenged on how to deal with these ocean issues. And I think today's meeting also reaffirmed the need for multilateral collaboration and cooperation. And I think that is one of the important points, but I'd like to emphasize that the basis of multilateral collaboration and cooperation must be based on scientific evidence. In other words, cooperative activities must be based on scientific planning and scientific action. Next slide, please. Here, we would consider the movement on the Decade of Ocean Science. The UN Decade of Ocean Science aims to build the scientific knowledge infrastructure and partnership necessary for sustainable development of the oceans, and to contribute to the achievement of the SDGs, particularly SDGs number 14, by translating scientific knowledge, data, and information on the oceans into ocean policy. None of the 10 targets set out in the SDGs number 14 can be advanced without scientific knowledge. So furthermore, achieving SDGs number 14 will require the cooperation of the diverse range of stakeholders, including policymakers, civil society, fishermen, businessmen, and foundations like ours, as well as scientists involved in the ocean research. we must raise awareness of the importance of marine science and the value of marine science in society as a whole. Among the many and the diverse stakeholders, there's a great opportunity for the private sector, represented by global corporations and NGOs and nonprofit foundations like ours to play an active role. The UN Decade of Ocean Science will affect the change in marine science to find science-based solutions for sustainable development, and will provide the global companies and NGOs that participate in it with an once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to influence policy and research funding, science and technology and innovation. From the preparatory phase to the end of the implementation phase, there is a call for the active participation of all private sector actors, including global companies, NGOs, and think tanks, policy researchers, and scientific researchers to generate new ideas, solutions, and partnerships and applications. For this reason, there are high expectations for the role that the private sector can play. Next slide, please. So since 2000, the Ocean Policy Research Institute has worked as a think tank aiming for a harmonious relationship between mankind and the oceans through ocean policy research, policy recommendations and publications and information. As one of the world's premier ocean think tanks, OPRI will continue its research efforts and advocacy in the international community to realize its mission of establishing ocean governance. Next one, slides, please. And we are also actively engaged in capacity building. As a nonprofit private foundation, we have been promoting the international cooperation in ocean-related fields, particularly with the help for the World Maritime University in the Malmö, Sweden. And by the year 2019, we have funded scholarships, provided scholarships over more than 70 countries and over 660 students so far. And ocean education, and as well as our efforts in the World Maritime University Scholarships Program, we have also been funding an education program in Japan, what we call the Ocean Education Pioneer School Program, to enhance ocean education in the Japanese school system. And in 2019, we have been funding over 190 schools in Japan so far. Next slide, please. In November last year and in January this year, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation held a symposium to promote cooperation between industry, academia, and the private sector. The Sasakawa Peace Foundation also launched a study group in collaboration with the Japan Ocean Policy Association as a platform for discussion in Japan, and held a kickoff meeting in August. A unique feature of this study group, is that the people from related ministries and agencies are participating as a member. And we are also making a book of Japan's practices for UN Decade of Ocean Science, which will be published in March next year. The Sasakawa Peace Foundation's Institute for Ocean Policy Research would like to promote the role of the private sector and the nonprofit think tanks in the United UN Decade of Ocean Science. What I wish to do, particularly with the work with this community, is that to create a platform for networking and a collaboration among the nonprofit and non-government foundation in Asia to support ocean science in the region, including capacity building and also the funding for ocean science collaboration for this part of the very important area, Asia. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to working with you and providing any other good ideas. We will always welcome your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tsunami-san, for your very valuable insight and also commitment to promoting ocean research. In the decade, we look forward to working more closely with you and other partners in the region. So I think colleagues and friends, because we are a little bit short of time, so we saw several questions in the QA box. I think most of the questions are related to the national science priority issues, related to the role of ocean science in supporting the local community issues. I think we will take note of all questions and also reach out to the suitable panelists for their answer, and then we will provide their feedback to you immediately after this session. Kind of note, I think those questions are very important. I think probably we will also post this question as FAQs, frequently asked questions, combine this list and also upload to our website. So if you have further questions, please also feel free to raise it up through the dedicated UN Decade email or IOC Westpac email address. So let's go to the last quiz. We will take a very quick quiz, to understand how much you have the knowledge of co-designing from very tight schedule today. I feel really challenging today. Please, the first one, how has your understanding on co-design evolved with this event? Please mark the option you want. Okay, we are going to close the poll. Okay, so obviously and also evidently, I think the larger number of our participants enhance their understanding about the co-design approach through these two events. It's very encouraging signals. Might come to the second question, please. Which do you think is the biggest challenge for co-design for a regional decade program that needs to be addressed? 10 seconds, please. Okay, let's close the poll. See the result. Okay, funding and also identification of engagement of multi-stakeholder remain as two top biggest challenges for co-designing science. I think the result indeed reflect the reality, for this region, in terms of the challenges for co-designing the science. So definitely we will, make continuous efforts in order, to address these challenges gradually. Of course, with your collective efforts and with the support from all respective communities. Thank you very much for the quiz, for joining the quiz. So before we close the session, the team, the IOC and also IOC Westpac and also our partner institution wish to share with you some preliminary thoughts for our next step towards the UN decade. The first, after this session, we will develop a short discussion paper building on today's outcomes. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to, to send via email to us, or, to express your insight and also perspective. And then global wrap-up session on co-designing the science will be held in November 24, with the registration open soon. And after this, an integrated final report on co-designing solution-oriented research paper will be published, expected to be published in December 2020. I would also draw your attention to the core for UN Decade actions. So as you are aware, the first core for UN action has been already launched 1 month ago with a focus on large-scale contribution and also large programs. So the core will be closed, until 15 January 2021, with a decision to be made in the first quarter of next year. But if you cannot catch up the first core, you don't need to worry too much, because there will be also a regular core for decade action will be launched from time to time throughout the next 10 years. So you can find more detail available on their dedicated Ocean Decade website. So at the regional level, I think it's more closely related to what action we should take immediately after this meeting. So we will, building on the momentum we have achieved from this session, we will conduct the online post-event questionnaire survey to further, invite your inputs, comment, insight, and suggestions. And on a daily basis and operational basis, we will keep providing a voice for the regional participation, establish a communication and outreach activity, and also convene a promotional activity in order to bring stakeholders together, and also to promote and highlight activities in support of our shared goals for the decade. And the most important things, we also need to continuously catalyze research initiative with the different stakeholders and provide technical support to the development and implementation of Ocean Decade actions in the region in order to address the decade scientific challenges. Last but not least, I would also draw your attention. We are planning to convene our decade regional kickoff conference in conjunction with the traditional 11th Westpac International Marine Science Conference that has been scheduled for August 2024 with the kind host of the government of Thailand. So should you have any inquiries about all activities about the UN Decade, please feel free to contact the IOC Decade team and also IOC Westpac. So finally, before closing the meeting, I would express, on behalf of the whole organizing team, to express our sincere appreciation to all our partners, institutions, and all our panelists and your participation, and many colleagues and friends in different countries for providing your suggestions, providing your recommendations in order to make sure we can get the right and suitable panelists to give you more insight of the co-designing the science. Finally, I think special thanks to our organizing team in Paris and Bangkok. I apologize for the limited time for QA discussion, but this is indeed a challenges, that I think I never experienced in the past, even more than those challenges I have for running 3 days workshops before. But anyhow, I think this is just serve as a starting point, and we will continuously organize thematical or regional level promotional activity in order to bring all stakeholders to co-design the science for the ocean we want. I thank you very much for your participation, and I wish you you will keep doing well. Thank you very much. I think I would like to close the session today. Thank you very much.